Check this thing out. This is one of the prettiest amps I've ever seen. The angle you guys have doesn't really show it off that well because the light doesn't catch the beautiful grill cloth here, which has this lovely gold sparkle to it. I'll get some B-roll and splice it in here, but this is a very, very neat piece of Fender history. This is a Fender Bandmaster, but it is very early 64. So black panel, kind of the very, very start of Leo Fender and this brand new circuit design. I'm assuming it is AA763. And then the cabinetry, though, is still the older era. So you still got the cream Tolex piggyback setup here with the wheat grill cloth. I just think it's aesthetically very, very pleasing. Huge fan of this. And I've always been curious what these are like. I've never played a piggyback Fender amp before. I've never worked on one before either. So very excited with this project. The owner brought it in basically for me to look it over and just confirm it's got a clean bill of health. We played it a little bit. Trem wasn't working. Definitely had some problems going on. So we'll have to see what we uncover when we open it up. He's not sure what's been done to it. But yeah, I just wanted to start this video by just showing how beautiful this thing is. I'm a huge fan of these and I can't wait to hear it. But in the meantime, let's throw on the workbench and see what we got to do. So let's go ahead and check out this side of the chassis first before we reveal what it looks like on the other side. Just confirm the originality of it. So we can see, we'll zoom in here, the output transformer here, 125A, 6A. I believe this is the exact same output transformer in my Vibrolux reverb. And 606, 343, so 1963, 43rd week, so the end of 63. Move on over here to the choke, 606, 340, so just 3 weeks difference between these two. And then if we move on to the power transformer, 606, 342. So all of these are within 3 weeks of each other, which is perfect. One thing I do want to note, just looking at it, zoom out again, look at the discoloration around here. So you can definitely see that this amp has been run really hot, possibly the bias being way out, and just over time it's really kind of roasted the chassis here. So sometimes you see that. I usually see it on more powerful amplifiers like a Twin or something. Showman, things of that nature, but obviously it does still happen here. And then another little interesting bit, you can see the little star washer right there on both sides of the output transformer. Never seen that before, but yeah, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Doesn't look like the transformer's been messed with from this side. Yeah, that's a new one. Okay, it's all been recapped recently. Looks like 2021 with MOD caps. That looks pretty good. Did kind of the method that I'm really not a fan of, but not the first time we've seen this. We see this fairly often. Let's see if I can show you guys. So you can see they had the old leads of the original caps and they just cut them and then just kind of looped around. If you can see that. Kind of looped the new caps instead of just pulling out the old leads and just putting in the new ones. Even if you want to do it kind of lazy and not lift up the bottom board, just put them all on top, it's still totally feasible by just cutting and removing these leads out. So I really don't like when people do this. Functionally, is it fine? Probably. It's probably not going to be a problem, but yeah, just not my preference. I don't know if this is a symbol for somebody or who worked on it before, but it looks pretty good. I'm used to seeing these as 220Ks, but these look original. I don't know the circuit just offhand, so that's kind of interesting. The other resistors look original, and yeah, overall looks pretty good. Only one other thing I'll point out here. Two more things. One is this date code here, 64. It's like a 0464. That's pretty cool. And then the last piece I wanted to point out are these. I've never seen this before. Very, very cool. Presumably factory. Looks factory. So, Fender sharing chassis with different amplifiers. So I guess this is same chassis as we might find in a Showman, maybe? I'm trying to think of what would have 4 full body tubes here. So probably a Showman or a Twin. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Never seen that before. There's the death cap lead. So death cap might still be connected. Let's go ahead and flip it over and see what secrets lie before us. All right, well, mostly encouraging. So let me just kind of quickly run through first glance what I'm seeing here. We'll start on this side. I can't imagine, well, I mean, I can't imagine Fender would have a cap like this long of lead length, but it does look quite old. So this would, I guess, presumably be the treble cap. Can't make out the value from here. We got the blue moldeds, which is fantastic. It looks like we've got all of the original carbon comps in here. Also great, assuming that they are measuring okay. Obviously, we've had the cathode bypass cap swapped with mod. Kind of did a similar thing. Well, let me see. No, okay, so they did a better job in installing these. It doesn't look great, but they didn't reuse the original leads, it doesn't look like, from the previous caps. They just kind of wrapped them together. Just not super clean, but functionally totally fine. Although, looking over here, and maybe you guys won't be able to see this. Let me lean the amp over. Can you see the solder joints on the brass? So the ground wires go into the brass plate there. Those all look like they were tried to touch, somebody tried to touch them up, and they did not have a hot enough soldering iron to do it. So that's kind of the classic tell where it looks like that. So we'll have to redo those for sure. Again, blue moldeds look good. Everything's looking pretty good over here. There's the other treble caps. This is what would have been original on this side. So this is a replacement, and boy, they left the full lead length of this cap for some reason. No reason to do that at all. So we'll definitely cut that down and put that in closer. At the original 68Ks. The pots all look good at first glance. I don't see any changes there. Tube sockets look good. This is kind of interesting. So we do obviously have a replaced roach. You can see it's got the little dot they put on the new ones, and they're so long that you have to kind of sit them up proud. You can see I can stick this right under. But that's replacement, not a problem there at all. Got the original oscillating caps there. And we have a domino cap here, which is really interesting. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. That's what you see in like the Tweed era. This is, pretty early 63, so kind of transition era, maybe original. From my end, it looks like an original solder joint, but I can't really tell. That's very interesting. I've never seen one of those in an amp like this. Continuing on, everything looks pretty good. The original bias resistor. So curious to see where that bias is at. Move on down to this side. We got the replaced bias cap. These solder joints look very cool. Don't look very well done. Maybe a guy had an issue with the heat of his soldering iron or something. So we'll probably redo those. We'll definitely redo those. Got the original diodes back here. Solid state rectified. Again, looks like they touched up this ground connection for the bias supply. I don't know if you can see that or not. Just looks like it could use a little bit of love. Installed a 3-prong. We got the ground to a chassis bolt. I'm going to redo that. We're going to go directly to chassis. No reason to do that. Although, if you don't have the iron to do it, then this is a much better way for sure. But I have the iron to do it, so we might as well fix that. We have a replace screen resistor here. This is the original. This is a replacement. No grid stoppers on these. And I cannot see the 3-prong wiring from here, so let me move the amp around and get a better view. All right, the 3-prong wiring was done correctly. So you've got the hot going to the fuse tip, and then you've got the neutral going to one of the primaries, and the other primaries going to the other end of the switch. So that all looks good. This looks very, very good. Now, I can't remember if I said this earlier or not in the video, but the owner brought the amp over for me to check out, not anticipating it needing any work, and it was having some issues. There was this kind of weird distortion noise behind the notes that was always there, and the trem did not work at all, which is interesting because we do see the trem was worked on. So yeah, there's definitely some things we got to figure out here, and but overall it looks very good. We don't have to do a recap job or anything, so that's nice. And yeah, we'll just have to kind of troubleshoot it. So I'm gonna go ahead and dig into it a little bit, and I'll pick up once I find something. So I found a couple more things after I turned off the camera, of course. We got this 1 meg replaced on the input jack for the first channel. And I'll show kind of a close-up of the soldering on the brass plate here. That's kind of the theme, honestly. Every solder joint I can see that's been touched seems to not have been done super well and you can actually see the leads kind of, there's a hole where the lead is going. So we can show an example. So there's just a lot of that overall. You know, not the end of the world. We can fix all of that, but definitely some cold solder joints in a lot of places that we'll have to tackle. But yeah, everything else looks okay. It's not bad at all. Not bad. It could be much, much worse. We've seen much worse on the channel. And this one should be fairly quick to turn around as well, which will be great. Always want to check to see what's in the amplifier. This should have a 2 amp, not a 3 amp. So we'll go ahead and replace that. Also a slow blow. I think the first thing I'm going to do actually is just go ahead and check the bias real quick, turn it on, see if I can replicate the issues that were showing up with the amplifier. So we'll go ahead and flick this on. We got 120 volts from the wall. Let that warm up for a second. So let's see what we're running at. Now it's warmed up a little bit. So we've got 444, 443-ish for the plate voltage for both tubes. And then we'll go ahead and check the current. Very low, so 17 and 12.5. So these tubes are not very well matched, and the plate current's very low. If I run the numbers real quick, see what that gives us. I gotta imagine that's putting us in the, you know, maybe 30% range or so. Let's see what it tells me. So this is giving us 24% plate dissipation with the 5881s on the low tube. The high tube is about 32, 33%. So it's running very cool, which is not surprising to me at all. With the original bias resistor there, it's usually not enough with modern wall voltages to get it to where it needs to go. So let's just adjust it up a little bit, see what that puts us at. So that puts us at 50% right there. So this was biased very cool. Geez. So we can go just a little bit more. 65%. So I'm very happy with this. Again, not perfectly matched tubes, but nothing in life is perfect, guys. If it sounds good, it is good. And the amp doesn't seem excessively noisy as a result of the mismatch. So that all looks pretty good. Now let's see if we can kind of start to get some of those problems to show themselves. So first, scratchy pots, almost guaranteed. Let's check for that. So really just the volume controls are a bit scratchy, so we'll hit those with some deoxit. Let's go ahead and check the trem. Was not working. Let's see if we can confirm that here. Hear no tick out of the amp. Oh, we're getting trem all of a sudden. Okay. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but we're getting trem. Seems fairly weak, but it's working. All right, that's good. Don't know why it didn't work before, but there you go. Maybe this is just dirty. So now let's turn it off. We'll clean the pots and continue on. Didn't catch this when I was first looking at the amp. Some kind of piece of something underneath the between the brass plate and the chassis here. Piece of cardboard or something. Interesting. I spoke to the owner. We went ahead and just looked through the entire amplifier together and talked through just what has been done to it and kind of some of my recommendations. And he's opted for me to go ahead and just redo the recap job. It's functional, but overall pretty subpar. The quality of the work is not great, and he's got a lot of pride in this amp and would like it to be really, really well done, top to bottom. So we're going to go ahead and redo all of the caps in this, including in the doghouse, fix these solder joints that are bad, redo quite a lot of solder joints, honestly. And yeah, just some general maintenance in addition to that. So before we dive into that, I want to go ahead and just play it and see if we can detect the problems and kind of make note of what that could be before we start doing stuff, just because I don't want to, you know, redo solder joints and eyelets and everything and then have to redo it again. So I know the amp functions. I played it before. So let's go ahead and just hear it right now as is. Just play a little bit of guitar, run the controls, see what's what, and then we'll go from there. Well, to me, that sounds pretty quintessential blackface bandmaster. Yeah, sounds like the classic, classic circuit. Nothing really stood out totally as wrong. The trem seemed to work just fine, had plenty of speed range there for me at least. The depth, again, not a whole lot going in this kind of, 4 to 6 range, but, you know, honestly, for me, if you're going to use this kind of trem, it's, you either got subtle or you want super deep, and it'll get plenty deep, in my opinion. The roach has already been replaced as well, so probably would be down to the tube. I think it was totally functional and fine. I would not touch it for my own amp. And all the other controls seemed good. The amp sounded great, I thought. There was maybe a little something happening behind the notes at certain times. I was hitting it really hard, and I'm not really sure if that was coming across or not. I'll have to listen back to the audio, but definitely when I was playing the amp with the owner when he first brought it over, there was this kind of distortion, something going on behind the notes, and it was very obvious in the room. The aux box tends to kind of, you lose some of that for some reason with the aux box. So I'm betting it's still here, but it's just not really audible with the aux box, and through a cab it will be. So I'll have to test that a different day when I can turn it up a little bit through its native cab. But overall, seems fairly healthy. So really, most of this just comes down to, rectifying some really sloppy work, making sure the solder joints look good, kind of just getting the amp up to the quality, or the work up to the quality of the rest of the amp. So that's a totally a fair task and something I will enjoy doing. So yeah, let's go ahead and just start taking some measurements of resistors and whatnot. See if anything sticks out as being way off, but overall, it seems pretty clean and pretty solid.